Only speaking facts, I'm known to keep it real. I ain't worried about your feelings when I'm in the field. They be watching what I do from my highlight reel. I'm just running to the paper, fuck how you feel. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. Shout out to the crew and they get real. I'm in with the crew, nigga, real.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another week of the RDL Fantasy Podcast. I have some very sad news. Bruce has decided to leave the show. He thinks that Trav's projections are trash, and he's just fed up with it. It's just a sad, sad day. Psych, what's up, Bruce? Welcome.
What's good?
What's up?
Glad to be back.
Bro.
Glad to be back.
We had this ball guy on last week. He didn't know what the hell he was talking. No, I'm joking. Javier, thank you for joining us last week. What's up, Bruce?
Chilling, man. Chilling. Going through some withdrawals over here with not being on the show for a minute. I was just trapped in a box of emotion. Like, what the hell is going on? You guys are talking and nobody heard.
Tonight will be the night that I will fall for you.
Oh my God.
Once again, everybody, thank you for joining us for another week of the RDL podcast. We got Bruce, we got Trav, we got a good week for you, a good episode for you, rather, going over week 4's games and our fantasy stars. And also, we're going to talk about this upcoming Thursday night game for you, and also injury report and some waiver wires, who you should pick up this week. How's everybody feeling about this week's games?
Miserable.
Man.
Nah. We had some good games. Man. All right, so this is how I felt about fantasy this week, even though it ended up still like high scores and all that. But it was funny because the early 1:00 games, it was like the games were exciting, but not for fantasy. Like my team was struggling, my players were struggling. So it was a little watching that at first. I mean, things started getting rolling, but there was a lot of action. I mean, we watched the game in Andy's room.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
Bijan shaking people in that Toy Story animation was chef's.
It was a lot better than I expected it to be. I mean, cool. I was fanboying over it a little bit. I'll not lie. I like to troll a lot, but I was fanboying over it. But I thought it wasn't going to be as good. But I don't know what they did, if they had sensors on each player or something like that. But
they probably put sensors on the pads. It would make sense that they put sensors in the pads. They put chips.
Pretty
in
cool.
Football.
Pretty cool. So hey, let's talk about that game, Atlanta versus Jacksonville. What'd you guys see?
Yeah, I just want to start by saying I think they forgot to chip up Kyle Pitts' shoulder pads in his jersey. I mean, was he even a part of the animation, man? Come on, I don't know what the hell.
I think he was a hologram on the field.
Yeah, he might have been. I mean, dude. If we want to talk about this game first, my first thought would be Kyle Pitts is borderline unplayable. I mean, Jonnu Smith, his teammate, who was in Tennessee with Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Falcons, he's the tight end popping off right now. 15.5 fantasy points, 6 catches for 95 yards, and he saw more targets than Kyle Pitts. In no world should that be happening, but it is. So my first takeaway from that is Kyle Pitts is unplayable. I mean, he's not even the best tight end on his team for fantasy wise. For fantasy,
is he
production.
droppable?
Dude, for 2023, he just might be. He just might be. In Dynasty, I wouldn't drop a player like him. I think by the time he's 25, he'll be Patrick Mahomes' tight end and Travis Kelce's replacement. But for now, I mean, for 2023, man, I think you could pack him up and not feel bad about it at all.
Yeah, man. And listen, Ritter with a fucking terrible game. Very, very bad. So it doesn't, he's not giving him any help. He's not giving him any help. On the other end, on that receiving end, Drake London showed some flashes and what we expect from Drake London. 3 receptions on 7 targets and a touchdown. It's a little not something crazy, but 11.8. It'll do you some good. It'll keep you in some games.
Yeah, they had to get him a touchdown just because they were in London.
I mean, my opinion about any London game is obviously Jacksonville, and you're going to Duval County in London, isn't it, bro?
In it, bro.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about it. Like, their defense is gonna go off. Everything about Jacksonville is gonna go off, except for the other team. Like, that's just how I feel. I mean, Bijan still got me some points there, and I'm happy with his performance. Always happy with some Bijan. I mean, he's the whole offense to that team, right?
Right.
So, Unfortunately, he gets the ball. I was hoping for Algier to do a little bit more, but I mean, Bijan was moving the ball for them.
Yeah, he saw about half the carries as Bijan. But yeah, Bijan's Bijan. He's what you, Bruce, you were very high on him in the beginning of the year, and it's paying out. It's paying off rather, and he's continuing giving us high scoring games. For the running back.
Yeah.
On the we'll stay on that Atlanta side. We have. Oh, you already spoke about Smith, the tight end. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, Smith the tight end. Yeah, like how does that happen, dude? Like how does that happen?
Listen, here's the thing. He called all his targets, so that's huge. That's huge, especially in PPR formats. That's huge, and I agree with you, Trav. Is borderline droppable in redraft leagues, Pitts, because this guy caught every pass his way, and that's what we're gonna need from, or rather, that's what the Falcons need.
Yeah, and like I said earlier about the connection with Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith going back to Tennessee, is people saw this coming. People saw Jonnu Smith having a role that was going to cut into Kyle Pitts' role just because Jonnu was so familiar with the offense and familiar with his head coach. So, like, this is a situation, like we said, Kyle Pitts is droppable. Jonnu Smith all of a sudden becomes an interesting streaming option. There's a league that I'm in that I'm going to have to pick him up and stream him because Pat Fryermuth is dealing with the hamstring injury that we'll get into later. But Jonnu Smith is looking like a serviceable option right now if you're a tight end streamer like myself.
I was gonna try to make an argument for Pitts, but
go ahead. No, go ahead. The floor is yours.
No. I was, but I can't. I can't argue. If you're more snap percentages than the other guy, and the other guy's doing more with the little bit he's getting, then there's no complaint there. Like there's something was up. Now I would have to rewatch the game to see where they were throwing him the ball, because like is it a T Higgins Smith situation? I don't think it is. I'm not saying that's what it is. But if the guy's getting 55% and you're getting like 67, I think I just saw on Kyle Pitts, something's up, you know. But it depends on how they were running that offense at the time. But he had 4 targets and only brought in 2 of them, so that's kind of
something's been up for a while with Pitts.
Yeah,
I think every year, every pre-draft, everybody's so high on him, and
yeah. The fact of the matter is, for me, Jonnu Smith is seen the most targets over the last 3 weeks. I mean, week 2 against Green Bay, he got 6. Week 3 against Detroit, 8, and then this week against Jacksonville, 6 again. This week, like you mentioned, Kevin, he caught all 6 for 95 yards. He finished as tight end 3 overall for week 4. Kyle Pitts has nothing close to that. I mean, when we look at Kyle Pitts and what he's done this season, tight end 22 in week 1, tight end 42 in week 2, tight end 16 in week 3, and tight end 31 in week 4. Right now, through the first 4 weeks, he's tight end 29. His own teammate is tight end 11, and his own teammate was not the one that the organization picked with the 4th overall pick. So
with 3 years of unproductiveness, is that a word? I'm gonna make it a word. Unproductiveness from Kyle Pitts. Trav, I'm saying he's droppable. Get him off your team. Find someone else. I just don't. It's sad. It's sad, and I don't think it's gonna change.
I have to agree. I mean, we got Tyler Higbee off the waivers. He wasn't drafted in some leagues. Some leagues you were able to get him round 13, round 14.
Right.
Like, there's tight end options out there. Kyle Pitts, there's no reason to trot him out. If you feel guilty about dropping him because of where you drafted him, fine. But make sure he is not in your starting lineup.
Unfortunately, right? Yeah, unfortunately. Because you got right now, I think that with high availability right now, it's Ertz, Zach Ertz, Conklin, who's probably going to be viable if we keep getting this type of Zach Wilson play. Higbee, Logan Thomas, which Javi talked about last week. Yeah. So there's potential out there. There's definitely potential out there. And now you got Jonnu Smith, who seems to be chipping away at the production. So interesting.
While I have you on the screen, Bruce, you were very high on Ingram. Ingram had a good game on the other side. Talk about him.
Yep. Oh, that Ingram is going to be Ingram. So, like, this is something that Travis always talked about. Like, the Giants never utilized Ingram the way Jacksonville is utilizing Ingram. Like, if you look at Ingram out there on the field in the plays, the way they're using him, he looks like another wide receiver. So they're bringing him into the game where he's viable. He's a viable option to play in fantasy. Like, I'm really digging what they're doing with him right now.
Yeah, man.
Eight targets.
Exactly.
8
what I was just about to
targets. He
bring up.
brought 7 of them in. How many yards do you have? 59 yards. He had a fumble. I mean, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I gotta say, I like the way Jacksonville utilizes him. So he has upside to me.
Yeah, when he was in New York with the Giants, they were using him in line as a blocker, or not as a blocker, but hand in the dirt, right? Where he can't really get into a full sprint and utilize his speed at the position. He's got special speed at the tight end position. So right now, Evan Ingram is tight end 4 overall in fantasy. I was going to say back to back, but really 4 weeks in a row with at least a top 8 finish, or a top 7 finish rather, and 3 games in a row with 8 targets in each of those games. This guy is as legit as it gets at tight end right now, with all things considered, with all things around him, and the way the tight end landscape is. So Evan Ingram, I would think that he's going to continue this level of production and continue to be, at worst, a top 10 tight end the rest of the season.
It's so funny because with the number 17, I'm sorry, but with the number 17, he looks like a wide receiver. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
No, it's true. All the numbers changes is quite funny. No, what I was gonna say, interesting stat here. In the past 3 games, Christian Kirk with 16.4 points this game. Christian Kirk, 29% of target shares. Ingram is number 2 at 27% of target shares. Number 3 is Ridley at 15%. So, in the beginning, we were looking at Ridley like, oh man, he's gonna take over. And we're seeing Trevor Lawrence looking at other places at Kirk. That's what they traded for Kirk for. And Ingram, who's just like you said, he's just a receiver out there, and it's hard to defend these big tight ends like that can go up and catch the ball.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, it's starting to get a little concerning, right? Because he was going early round 3, even late round 2, depending on who was in your league and how much hype they had surrounding him. But it has just not been an inspiring last 3 weeks of football. Honestly, week 1, he had the wide receiver 6 finish. This week against Atlanta, his old team, where he got the touchdown, but I thought for sure they were going to force feed him the ball and let him get that little revenge game narrative going. 2 targets. He caught them both, but 2 targets for 38 yards, the touchdown, finishes as wide receiver 31. Obviously, we're not at the point where you're benching Calvin Ridley, despite how uninspiring his performances have been. But we are genuinely concerned at this point if you're his fantasy owner, because this is not the level of production that you expected out of him when you drafted him where you did. So I'm not saying bench him, but he's most certainly not a wide receiver 2 right now. He's a high-end wide receiver 3, especially when you're considering all these finishes. Wide receiver 81 in week 2, wide receiver 66 in week 3, and then, like we said, wide receiver 31 in week 4. At best, a flex play right now who still has that wide receiver 2 upside if he can just get the damn ball.
Yeah, man. It's looking rough out there for Ridley because it's going down for him a little bit. But Trevor Lawrence likes to spread the ball around. But right now, Ridley's not up there. And Evan Ingram and Kirk are your players on that team, putting up decent value, both outscoring their projections last week. Anything else on this game? It wasn't too big of a game. It was an early game, so it was fun to watch early. But besides that, anything fantasy? Well, I don't really like to talk about kickers and defenses too much, but the Jaguars putting up 21 points, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. So I'm gonna give them the little flowers there for that defense because
home field advantage.
yeah.
That's really what it is over there in London.
Home field advantage, bro. I was saying it, right? And let's be mindful. We got bye weeks this week too, so.
Yeah, we'll go over there as we bring up week 5 at roughly at the end of this episode and our second episode this week. Let's move on to the next game I have on my list here. Going from a 70-point miracle to getting mollywopped in Buffalo. Listen, Bruce, you made comments about it in our RDL chat that we have on WhatsApp that they shouldn't be too concerned, but Buffalo just has this team's number. And I'm concerned if I'm looking at stuff as certain players because Tua, it was a lot of talk this week on several websites and several analysis on fantasy. He's a system quarterback, and if you take that away from him, he's not going to get you what you need. And that was proven against Buffalo. Only 13.98 points. That's underscoring his projection. He didn't look good because Buffalo was on top of him almost every play. They were doing a great job let me not say shutting down, slowing down the Miami offense.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point there. If that game had more time, it looked like Stephon Diggs was like, hey, I think he hit him with one of these, right? Like, I think we can put 70 up on them. Like,
I said it, man. When I got to 40 points, I was like, I think they're trying to embarrass this team. I think they're trying to embarrass this team.
It was a humble game, 100% humble game.
Yeah,
100% humble game for the Miami Dolphins and the offense. And they'll just got to figure things out because I hate to say it, move the chains. A-Chain is doing his thing.
Yeah,
like, he's still balling. Like the running game, maybe they should have just kept going with the running game more in that game and then open up the passing game. But I mean, there was still some good production out of Miami. It was just, I hate to say it, the Bills defense is a good defense, and the Dolphins defense is still hurt a little. I think they're missing 3 players on that defense. So it's it was a humble game, bro. It's 100% a humble game.
Yeah,
you're playing your divisional rival. You're gonna have. It's not gonna be easy game. This ain't the Broncos defense over here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not gonna talk too much on the Dolphins as a team. I'm gonna keep it in the fantasy aspect because I could be a little bit of a hater. So
and Josh Allen was tearing the ass apart, bro.
Talk about him. 36.5 points, 320 yards, 4 tutties. I believe 1 on the ground as well, right?
Yeah, that's Josh Allen. He's a running back.
He is their best rusher sometimes.
I mean, they don't have a rusher. You say half of the time he'll usually get you 1 or 2 rushing TDs, and they use that committee to get him there.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was spreading the ball too. I mean, Diggs got a lot of the level, 36 points, 7 targets and 6 receptions, 120 yards, and 3 tutties as he was smashing his beers, hit him with the okay. But let's not forget about Gabe Davis there. Not as many targets, but made productive out of it, getting 61 yards on those 3 targets, caught all of his targets and a tutty with 15 points. Both of the receivers for that Buffalo team that are your star receivers, both outscoring projections. That must feel good if you have any of those guys on your team.
I was thinking Gabe Davis is a viable. I was telling Travis, I was like, I think he's just a viable flex start from now on. 100% viable flex start if you got him.
I'm looking at it right now, and I feel like Gabe Davis is a good piece to have for sure, and you could throw him in your flex. But the one thing that's a little concerning to me is week 1, 2 catches, 32 yards, 0 touchdowns. Week 2, he caught a touchdown. Week 3, he caught a touchdown. Week 4, he caught a touchdown. I don't think he's going to do that every week, catching a touchdown.
Who were they playing week 1? Was there a reason why they didn't get a touchdown?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were playing the greatest defense in the league, maybe. And that's why he wasn't able to get a touchdown. But, I mean, realistically, it's hard to keep up that level of production as far as touchdowns, right? Like, Gabe Davis isn't going to score a touchdown every week. And so when you finally decide to start him, because most likely he was your wide receiver 4 and wasn't a flex play for you early on, unless you did start him after the 21-point game against the Raiders, he's not going to get the touchdown every week. And when you finally decide to start him this week against Jacksonville, it might be the time that he doesn't get that touchdown. So
I don't know. They're at home in London.
Yeah, again, back-to-back London games. Can you believe that?
Oh wait,
you usually get a bye week
again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh shit. No,
they're in London again, and you usually get a bye week after that London game. So I'm pretty sure they stayed out there. And they just
for sure.
They're living
eating beans, eggs, and chips.
So
for breakfast.
But they play this week.
Yeah,
they play this week in London. Back-to-back London games for the Jaguars. But technically, the Bills are the home team this time, so we'll see.
Nah, all right. So
Jags going 2-0.
He's not viable at that point. So like my whole thing. Well, no, this is the whole thing, right? You got to travel over there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you got to get used to like there's a thing. Jet lag is real, bro. Like your timing is off. All that shit.
Yeah.
It gets thrown off. So I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to pick the Jags on this game. I'm not saying that Josh Allen ain't gonna be doing his thing, but I don't know, man. The Jags gonna be out there fresh, bro.
Your math ain't mathing right.
Tea and crumpets in the morning.
Yeah, but all seriousness, like Gabe Davis, I wouldn't trust it
Not
every
this
week
week.
just because he's not going to get a touchdown every week. And when he doesn't, what good is his production at that point? Now, on the other side of the ball here, I will say Devon Achane, there we go. He is he an RB1 in fantasy now or a very high-end RB2? Because this is back-to-back weeks where he's absolutely cooking.
I'm calling RB1, man. I talked about it last week with you, Trav. Mostert, we're going to see that decline slowly. They basically split carries. Mostert dropped the ball once and only got 9 yards on his 7 carries versus Achan's 8 carries with 101 yards. I mean, it's clear as day. This team should go with the hot hand. Yeah, I call him RB1. Mostert's not going to stay up there. That's why I was saying sell him high. Him high. If you didn't sell him when I told you to sell him, you're probably going to get difficulty selling him high again. Because as I predicted, they're going with the hot hand. They're going with the younger back, and I believe who's the other back? Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, he's getting active. He should be getting activated off IR.
He's coming back. So yeah, man. At 27 points and last week games, even though this was a bad game for the Dolphins, he still put up points on the board. And when I mean bad game for the Dolphins, I'm going to segue here as long as we're finished talking about these running backs for Miami. Bad game. Your guy, your workhorse, Tyreek Hill, only giving you 10 points.
Yeah.
I mean,
they shut him down. But I mean, Buffalo has Miami's number, right? And even with Davius White, their star corner, getting injured in this game, Miami still couldn't get anything going. I mean, Braxton Berrios, 6 targets, 6 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. He's obviously not a viable fantasy option, but he just had one of those games where if Tyreek's not hooping and Jalen Waddle's not hooping, somebody has to be, right? So that's kind of that situation. But really, I want to focus on Jalen Waddle again. I mean, when's his time to pop? I feel like this is a great buy low candidate. I know that's not the segment we're doing right now, but Jalen Waddle, he had the oblique injury coming into the season. Then he was concussed and missed the Denver game. Now he's back. But outside of the top 30 wide receivers in each of the 3 games he's played, and it's not like this offense hasn't been doing spectacular things when he's been there. So I don't know how to feel about Jalen Waddle right now.
No, that's an excellent point. And just to be clear, you're not going to continue seeing this from the Dolphins. They're still going to put up big numbers. They're not going to play Buffalo every week. The only way I see this falling for the Dolphins is if these other coaches start watching some Buffalo film and how they stopped them and how they slowed down. But we're still going to see these numbers. Don't worry about Tyreek Hill. Waddle, I do agree with you. It's going to be a little weary there. See if he has a bounce back game next week. They got the Giants next week? Who did they play next week?
The Dolphins this week, they play the Giants.
Yeah. So not for anything, but that's a good game, bounce back game for them to show everybody that
that they're still themselves.
That video I put in the chat now.
That they can still abuse. That they can still abuse you.
Yeah.
They can still abuse a team.
Yeah, man. So simple as that. I mean,
right now.
Yeah,
they're gonna need these games though.
That's your fantasy impact with this game. It was all on Buffalo. It must have hurt you because you're obviously. I started Tua in one of my leagues. I have him and Chris. My God, I was gonna say Christian Kirk Cousins. I have him and Kirk Cousins. It took me a while, and I started him over Kirk Cousins because he's just been snapping, and it hurt me. All those people that were putting up big numbers the first 3 weeks, it hurt you with Tyreek Hill. But don't worry too much. This team's going to continue putting up points. I wouldn't be afraid much of it. Now, if we go into next week and the Giants give them trouble and they took a book out of Buffalo's playbook, then we'll start raising some flags. But now, don't be worried. Besides Mostert, everybody in this team that usually you start, I will continue starting.
This was a comeback to earth fantasy aspect wise. You know what I'm saying? Because like last week, all these guys put up 50 points, so it was more comeback to earth. Let's get some realistic projections on the board here. Like, don't think these guys are going to be putting up 50 every week. I mean,
Yeah, that's not going to
against
happen
the
every week. But
Giants, maybe, but
it's not going to happen every week. But my thing is don't be too worried. I wouldn't be too worried.
Definitely no panic.
At least not yet. They give no reason. They're still a very, very high power offense. Like Trav said, Buffalo just has their number. Anything else with that Miami Buffalo game, guys?
I just think Dermot Smythe is a little viable right now, I guess.
Oh, the tight end, Durham Smythe. Yeah.
I mean, he's been getting used, but
he didn't see too many targets, only 4 targets, but he caught all his targets. And once again, in fantasy, we love the value. We love if you're making your plays. We love if you're getting your targets, and that's always a good look, especially if for whatever reason they start closing in on this Dolphins team and they start figuring out their offense. They're going to start looking at tight ends to dump the passes and things like that. Although, once again, I don't think that's going to happen. They have Tyreek Hill, if the best receiver in the league. I wouldn't be too concerned.
All right. Well, we brought up Durham Smythe. I'm just going to say one thing, and then we'll move on from this game. Durham Smythe is tight end 28 on the season. Kyle Pitts is tight end 29. Bench Kyle Pitts. Let's keep it moving. Brutal. Man.
Going away from Buffalo, let's just say I have to say, because we're going to let you know who is your top player at every position every week. Josh Allen was the top QB for week 4. Moving on to Minnesota, Carolina. I think this was my game of the week, fantasy-wise. I thought there was going to be a lot of points here, and there wasn't. There wasn't a lot of points. Justin Jefferson doing Justin Jefferson things. Besides that, it was pretty caca everywhere else. Hawkinson not putting up the points. Kirk Cousins scoring under 10 points. It was bad. Any thoughts on this matchup, guys, fantasy-wise?
Justin Jefferson's not real.
Yeah,
he's nasty, dude. He's just disgusting. He actually got touchdowns this week.
Yeah,
and he got 26 points. In the other weeks, he didn't even post a touchdown. So it just shows, like, I don't know. He's good, bro. You're good for 20 points with him in your lineup, guaranteed.
Yeah, mind you, we went over Diggs at 36 points. We went over Jefferson at 26 points. These guys are not your top receivers. We'll bring that top receiver to you very shortly. Before we say them, and if you don't know, go ahead and comment below who you believe was the top receiver of week 4. Trav, anything about this game?
My boy Jordan Addison disappointed me a little bit. 0 points, 0 points, 0 catches, 1 target. Again, like when you only get 1 target, is it your fault? Is it just the fact that you're playing with Justin Jefferson and this is going to happen sometimes? Is it the fact that Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 19 times when he had been throwing the ball 30, 40, 50 times the other weeks? So Jordan Addison not performing well is my one takeaway, but that's not something I'm too worried about. I think give him time and he'll work his way back into your flex consideration in those, 2 wide receiver flex spot type leagues. But yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from that side of the ball. And then on the other side, when we're looking at Carolina, Adam Thielen might actually be somebody that's worthy of your flex spot on a week in, week out basis. I mean, 15.2 in this one, coming off the 31.50 game against Seattle, finishing as a top 20 wide receiver this week, actually wide receiver 20, with 8 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards. I mean, Adam Thielen, and playing 90% of the snaps. Like, he's 33 years old, but don't tell him that. He's out there hooping.
Yeah, we talked about him last week, and if he was going to continue putting up this value, and I agree with you, Trav. I think that this value is going to continue, and he's definitely their guy in Carolina. He might be, I say it lightly. I know there's other players there that have potential, but he is the guy in Carolina right now. I know they have Miles Sanders, who didn't get a lot of love this week, and Hubbard also, but they weren't getting a lot of love this week. Adam Thielen looks like your guy on this team that you want to have, and might be the only guy that's going to give you value.
Yeah, Adam Thielen, wide receiver 10 right now in fantasy, and there's rumors swirling that Carolina is trying to give Bryce Young a wide receiver 1 through the trade market. So let's see how that unfolds.
I want to bring up, go back to Minnesota's running back room real quick. What are we doing with Cam Akers? A lot of people, he was drafted. He's sitting behind Madison now. He's not seeing the carries. He's not seeing the workload. Are we concerned about him? Is he just not a reliable start?
Yeah, Cam Akers, I wouldn't be starting at all right now. Best case, you're just holding him on your bench and, waiting to see if he can steal a real amount of work from Alexander Madison, or, you never want to see it happen, but maybe Madison gets a little banged up. Cam Akers are in to start, but at the moment, just keep Cam on the bench for now.
It looks like he's just a candle under Madison's ass, dude. Like,
Yeah.
'cause he's still Madison literally had 17 carries, bro.
Yeah.
And
No,
he only had 5.
And he made use of it. 5 yards short of a 100-yard game.
Yeah. Unless they're just easing him in. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this is Madison's backfield. There's a lot of problems with this Minnesota team if your name doesn't start with a J and then with a J in your last name. But besides that, JJ's the only guy there. And I mean, Hawkinson was getting a lot of love. Let me take a step back on my words there. He was getting a lot of love, but he just didn't see it this week.
Yeah.
Besides that, Kirk Cousins was putting up a lot of points, but it just didn't happen for him this week. And on Carolina's team, as their NFL record 0-4, that's how I feel about fantasy value on that team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing there. So
sounds about right.
I want to jump us to a game that I think Kevin can't wait to talk about, because he hit a couple things on the nail with this one. That Chicago Bears Denver Broncos game, where you told people on our episode last week, don't panic on Justin Fields, don't panic on DJ Moore. In fact, you thought these two were going to have a revival game against the Denver Broncos, and that's exactly what they had, Kevin.
Yes, sir. I was looking into my crystal ball, Hobby's head, and I was like, what do I see in here? What do I see in here? And I said, hey, buy low on Justin Fields. And them giving up that game and remaining 0-4, I think you could still buy low on Justin Fields. So continue to try and get that value and swindle him from somebody in your fantasy league. On the other hand, my factor for week 4 was DJ Moore. 27 points. Now, here's my defense on DJ Moore. I don't think that will continue with DJ Moore. I just think it's because they were playing this Denver team. That's why I made him a factor and not a buy. But I made Justin Fields a buy because they're going to start using them how this happened last year. This year is very similar to last year. Even when you talk about the Dolphins, they started good. I know Tua got hurt, but then when they played Buffalo, everything went downhill from there. And this is kind of the same thing we saw with Chicago last year. They didn't start 0-4, but Justin Fields is trying to get into it. And it seems like the coach was like, hey, do you, man? Do you play ball? And that's just what he did. 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 28 completions for 38 passes. He was slinging the ball out there. You're giving him the ball. And imagine that, 27 points by Justin Fields with all those passing attempts, and segue into our running backs over there with Herbert, 18 carries while my man was throwing the ball 35 times. I mean, there's a little bit value when you're playing Denver. I'm not going to say Chicago. When you're playing Denver, there's value on your fantasy team.
Yeah, it looks like it really might not matter the team. And so that makes this week's Jets-Broncos matchup interesting, because is this Breece Hall week? Is this Garrett Wilson week? We'll find all that out. But Justin Fields, the part that impresses me the most, despite the fact that it's Denver, is Justin Fields at Ohio State. Yeah, if you told me he threw for 335 yards, I'd believe you. Doing it in an NFL game, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, like we said, the Broncos suck. That's not news to anybody, especially after the Miami game. But the fact that Justin Fields is able to put up damn near 28 fantasy points and barely used his legs in this one, 4 carries for 25 yards, that's pretty inspiring. So if you tell me next time, or Thursday actually he plays, if you tell me on Thursday he throws for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, but then ups the rushing ability, now we have what we had last year in Justin Fields back. So as a passer, I don't expect that to carry over throughout the season, but we're still waiting for that boom rushing upside from him. And so there's a chance it happens this Thursday against Washington, or at some point later down the season, because it just has to. That's how Justin Fields is going to make his living in this league. So I'm willing to bank on Justin Fields moving forward.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was, once again, we're not just talking about Fields, Moore, and Herbert. Bruce, tell us a little bit about that tight end over there that got some love too.
Yeah.
About time. They commit.
There you go.
We're waiting for him to come alive for a minute. I mean,
and before you continue, commit number 1 tight end of the week. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what we expected, right? He got paid. This is what we were. If you're a command owner, this is what you were waiting for. Now, The thing is, did you start him? Like,
Uh,
I just feel like a lot of people may just have given up on him a little bit, only because they saw how this offense was playing. I
Yeah.
mean, if you saw they were playing Denver, maybe you did start him, but this is, I mean, we didn't expect 27 points, but we're expecting this type of productivity from him. So I'm hoping it continues because he looked good. Like the play was good. 2
I wouldn't.
touchdowns,
Yeah,
85 yards. It's not bad, man. Seven receptions. It's all right with me. You just got
this
to
is
keep it going.
this is a team. I'll say it again before we go over the small highlight on Denver's team. But Chicago is a team that I don't think this is going to continue the numbers. But if you listen to me and you started DJ Moore and you had a gut feeling and maybe somebody was hurt and you wanted to start commit, it was a good week for you. Moving over to Denver real quick. Trav, I'm going to put this on you because we're going to talk about him a little later in the injury report, I believe. Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
I believe hurt his hip. We'll go into that a little bit later. My question for you is P. Ryan. People drafted him saying, hey, this guy balled out and for the Bengals. He's going to ball out here, but he wasn't the name. What was the name over there that people should be looking at going into the waiver wires?
Mr. Jaleel McLaughlin, 7 carries, 72 yards, added 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. Good enough for 19.40 fantasy points. Now, if you're a regular NFL fan and you didn't really pay attention to the preseason, that name might sound like nothing to you right now. But if you watch the preseason, the kid was actually explosive and he was absolutely balling for Denver all throughout the preseason to the point where there was rumors that he would have a role. So much so that he stuck around as RB3 for this team. Now, Javonte Williams, they're saying he may not miss much time, if any. There's actually a chance that he plays this week against the Jets, even though I think Denver would be wise to hold him out. Jaleel McLaughlin's a name you have to pick up at this point because, one, he's showing you that he's coming in and he's immediately more productive than Samaje Perine has been at any point this season, and even Javonte Williams. Through these 4 games, he's had the most productivity of any back from Denver. So this is definitely a name worth going and adding on the waiver wire just because you don't know how much time Javonte will miss. But even if Javonte doesn't miss time, it's starting to feel like Jaleel's going to have a role here at some point because you can't keep talent off the field, especially when you're 1-3 and we're almost 0-4 down. 24 points to the Bears. So I would run to the waiver wires and get Jaleel McLaughlin and just stash him for now.
Yeah, and you're a team that needs to show production, right? Like you need to show improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And he could possibly steal touches from P. Ryan, and who knows, maybe Williams as well. But yeah, that's pretty impressive on 7 carries, 72 yards, 3 receptions, 32 yards and a touchdown. So you can't ask for more than that, you know. I mean, remember P. Ryan was behind Joe Mixon, so
right, and he got his opportunities. He balled. So that's why I raised that question because
but that we're talking about a different offense too, because this offense is not clicking like it was, you know, Cincinnati's.
Offense. Finishing up on that offense, we'll talk about people who outscored their projections. Russell Wilson projected for 14 points, which was rather low for a quarterback, getting 22 points. None of the receivers outscored their projections, so I'm not going to talk about any of those guys. And that's it. That's all you have with that Denver team. Not much value there. We're going to power through some of these next games. We got a lot of games to go through. Baltimore and Cleveland. And Cleveland. I'll start here. And I called Lamar Jackson an actor, and he did not act. He outscored his projections by 9 points, I believe.
Yeah.
28 points he put up. He did not flop. I thought he will. That entire team did not flop for their team that is fantasy value. A couple players flopped. Cleveland, I don't know if it was that DTR was back there, and I had a lot of faith in that kid. I don't know what was going on, but they just couldn't get the ball rolling on their side. Once again, none of their running backs, if they underscored their projections, unless they're big names, I'm not going to give them time of day. None of the running backs for Baltimore met projections, not even outscored. None of the receivers met projections, drastically underscored projections. The only guy we could talk about, and I know, Bruce, how you love your tight end, so I'm gonna put it on you. Mark Andrews, talk about him.
What about him? Nah, he's there.
25 points, bro.
It's supposed to be Lamar's guy, man. He's again. This is why he's on your team. because you expecting days like this, but he hasn't been putting this type of production. Neither has this offense. So we have to see what's going to happen. They got some pretty good games coming up. If you want my opinion on it, I think this production can continue. And we're seeing Mark Andrews come to life now. But I definitely would he's definitely gonna start putting up numbers, maybe. I mean, I don't think he's gonna be doing this. I think more of a week 2 performance, 15 points around there, 15, 18.
Still
is
valid.
more reason. No, yeah, that's great. But this was like a one-off game. I mean, Lamar had two rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's definitely
Lamar. That's Lamar being Lamar. I didn't think it was going to happen because that Cleveland defense is pretty good, but he shut me up. He must have watched the podcast because all the big names watch our podcast.
Exactly.
He was upset with
trademark Lamar. So
I will say one thing about Mark Andrews. There was a certain analyst on this podcast here that I was in a draft with, and he told me that he would take Darren Waller over Mark Andrews in a draft, and that I was tripping for taking Mark Andrews at the beginning of the 4th. Now, I'm not going to point fingers or say any names, but if you heard what I said and the Jets hat fits, where is it? You know what I mean?
All right, Trav, we got you on the screen. Let's power through this terrible Cleveland. I don't even know if you want to talk about it, but you know what? I'm not going to give him the time of day. I'm not.
Yeah.
Unless you want to. I'm not going to give him time of day.
I was say Deshaun Watson didn't play.
Yeah.
Nobody,
not a single soul. Well, I mean, I'm lying. Njoku,
David and Njoku
projection by a little bit, but still, it's a bad performance.
Maybe we're talking too much shit. Yeah,
but nobody outscoring their projections there. Everybody was straight trash. Let's move along. I'll leave it to you, Trav. Let's talk about Houston, Pittsburgh. Some fantasy value there.
I'm gonna say a couple things, and I'm gonna pass it to Bruce so he could talk about his main squeeze, CJ Stroud over there. But and well, you know what, Nico Collins too, because he's got him in every damn league he's in.
Yes,
so
sir.
Bruce, take it away, Bruce. Talk to us about Nico and CJ.
I'm just gonna tell you that the Texans are who I thought they were. They definitely this offense is gonna come alive, and then
it's gonna come alive. This isn't it alive?
No. Like it's I meant like it was gonna come alive. This is it, you know.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I also know that there's gonna be further improvement in Pierce. Once they get Noah Brown back, I think things are going to get spread out a little bit. So I don't know if Nico Collins is just going to be doing what he's doing right now, because I think Noah Brown got another week he's out because he was placed in the IR. So I don't know how soon they're going to get him back. But I think once Noah Brown. So my pick in this team for a higher ceiling than what he's been doing is CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I think CJ Stroud is going to be a 25-pointer and up quarterback this season. I'm not even saying next season.
Right? You have to throw an interception.
The kid is nasty. He's gonna have those games. He's gonna have one of those games. But I'm telling you, I just full firm believer on CJ Stroud. And I feel like Damon Pierce got upside to him. It's just the way they're running that offense. They're protecting that kid, and then he's making the right decisions. But when you have a Nico Collins, 7 targets, I mean 9 targets.
Yeah.
Or is it 9 receptions?
No, 9 targets.
I lost my numbers.
It's all right.
9
targets, 7 catches,
7 receptions, and then 168 yards with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he's all over the place. Like he trusts him. So I feel like there's gonna be upside to other people. Like Noah Brown, I think, is one of the guys that he's comfortable with. So I think he might be missing him a little bit. So I'm a little scared as far as like what's going to happen to the wide receiver core. But I feel like if you want the chunk, it's going to be Stroud in this team.
Yeah, Stroud right now good enough as for quarterback 10 in all formats of fantasy. 3 straight games with at least 20 fantasy points. He's a viable streaming option at this point. And if you have a quarterback that's struggling, like say you have Joe Burrow and at some point you picked up CJ Stroud off the waiver wire, like it's official. It's okay for it to be officially time to start CJ Stroud over Joe Burrow. We don't have to keep waiting on it for Joe Burrow. He's clearly not healthy. It hurts to bench him because of how elite we know he can be. But why go off of, well, what if Joe Burrow finally does it when CJ Stroud's already doing it?
Bro, it's not even that. Like, this is like the perfect season for a rookie. This is the perfect schedule for a rookie quarterback. Like, it's the perfect schedule to get a rookie quarterback into pro form. Because like they play Atlanta next week, then you get New Orleans, which is a tough defense. So if he does have a bad week, he goes into the bye and then he comes out to Carolina. And then he got a tough one against Tampa Bay. But it's just like, I don't know, man. This offense, even their defense is doing things that I'm a Texans fan a little bit. Like a little bit.
Yeah, talking about that offense. Talking about that offense. I saw Schultz hit the free agent market in a lot of my leagues. A lot of people were dropping him after his poor performances in the first 3 weeks, and he's showing a little bit of light too.
Well, like that's another thing. A tight end is what to a quarterback? A safety blanket.
Mm-hmm.
They're the check down most of the time, same as the running back when they're in a pass. This kid has been going through his progressions and making the right decision where he doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that they won't incorporate these types of things in the future. So I just feel like there's a lot of upside on this team that people are sleeping on. And then because I'm in a survivor league, but the survivor league is just like you pick games, you pick teams, and then you go on. I was telling everybody I was picking Houston. Now I forgot to pick this week, so I put a strike. But this was the game I was picking. I was picking the Texans to beat the Steelers, and everybody thought I was crazy.
Yeah, on the other end of that game, another poor performance from Pittsburgh. Nobody reaching projections. Moving on, I'm gonna go. If not, we're gonna run out of time. So I'm gonna move over to some of the star running back game and the star receiver game. We'll start with the running back, and it's your guy. He's never gonna fail you, Christian McCaffrey, almost breaking 50 points, 48.7 points. Who wants to talk about him? Who wants the floor?
He's back in Carolina.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm pissed at McCaffrey because I have Brock Purdy in the league, and he threw a backwards pass to McCaffrey by half a yard, and they gave it to McCaffrey as a rushing touchdown. So screw you, McCaffrey. You really hurt me this week. But no, obviously he's elite. Go on with the rest of the list, Kev. Who we got?
As well, we're gonna look over to this Philly game. Receiver number 1. I didn't think it was receiver number 1 thereafter for a couple of weeks, but he is AJ Brown with 13 targets, 9 receptions, a whopping 175 yards and 2 tutties. I mean, wow. That is some good numbers from AJ Brown. I'll talk about this game. We'll stay on this very briefly before we move on to our injury report, because I want to ask you, Trav, Devontae Smith. He's seen a little less targets, but he's the value's still there, I think. What do you think about Devontae Smith?
Yeah, Devontae will be fine. It's going to be like this with Philadelphia. 1 week, AJ Brown's going to go off. The next, Devontae is going to go off, and they're always going to impact each other's fantasy production. But the 9 targets is great. 7 catches for 78 yards is good. And again, even when it feels like he's having a mediocre game, it's still 14.8 points and a finish as wide receiver 25, which is high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2-ish. So I'm not worried about Devontae Smith. They're going to keep having weeks like this.
And shout out to Hurts to letting Swift managers get a touchdown this week.
There you go.
Some honorable mentions before we move on to our injury report. Derrick Henry showing that he's King Henry, 24 points. He got up there on the board. Josh Jacobs had a game as well. He had a hell of a game as well. 27 points. Any other guys that I'm missing that you guys you want to talk about before we move on to the injury report?
One thing I want to mention real quick, if we look at the Arizona game, is just my boy Michael Wilson, rookie wide receiver from Stanford. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I want to say 26.60 fantasy points. Yeah, 7 catches, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to be a name to watch at this point because there's not a lot going on with the Arizona passing game, but Josh Dobbs is looking pretty serviceable. In fact, he could even be a streaming option at quarterback 16 right now in fantasy. So Michael Wilson, someone that I want to give a quick shout out to.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Wilson catching all of his targets with 7 receptions. Something we need to pay attention to when we're looking about the target share there is Brown is still the guy value-wise getting 10 targets, but he didn't make do with those targets touchdown-wise. He still put up 96 yards. So they might have a little receiving core there, receiver 1, receiver 2 there, and they might be valuable for you, especially if Dobbs continues to play the way he plays.
Yep.
I don't think there's any other game that we can really speak too highly on. We already, we'll give another honorable mention. We already kind of spoke about David Montgomery, but we'll just put his name out there because he had a hell of a week as well. Trav, time for the injury report.
Let's do it. It's not too loaded as the rest have been, it feels like. So the roundup for week 5 is, what happened with T. Higgins, fractured ribs, but he said he's not ruling himself out for week 5. So we'll see what that means to him. Is he going to go out there and play against Arizona or not? We'll see. Javonte Williams dealing with a hip injury. He's also someone that is expected, quote unquote, to not miss much time, if any. So we'll see if Javonte is able to strap it up for week 5 against the Jets. Mike Evans, who's on a bye week, is dealing with a hamstring injury. He's going to have an MRI this week. So we'll keep an eye on that because he's been on an absolute tear. Devontae Adams, shoulder injury for the Las Vegas Raiders. He hurt it mid-game, came back, had a phenomenal game. But, that's kind of you're running on that adrenaline of playing. We'll see how he feels this week before their week 5 game. Our boy Pat Freiermuth, tight end, hamstring injury, out for 2 to 3 weeks. So make other plans at tight end if you had him. Jawan Johnson, who was my other plan at tight end because of Pat Freiermuth, he's also got a calf injury. So I got to figure out a third tight end for my team now. Jahan Dotson, who plays Thursday, was limited this week with an ankle injury. So we'll keep an eye on that before the Thursday game. Jameson Williams is back. Suspension has gone from 6 games to 4 games, so he is officially able to come back. He says the hammy's feeling good, so we'll keep an eye on Jameson this week for week 5. And then 2 Rams, Matthew Stafford and Kyron Williams, both with hip injuries. Stafford said if he's feeling good, he's going to give it a go. Kyron, I'm more concerned about because he's a running back and he's going to take a lot of hits, and a lot of them are going to be by that hip, so we'll see. Also, while we're here, let's just throw in who's on a bye this week. We've got the Chargers, Seahawks, Browns, and Bucks. Obviously, huge wide receiver names on all those teams and big running back names on those teams as well. So make reservations. Again, week 5 buys, Chargers, Seahawks, Browns, Bucks.
Yeah, thank you, Trav, for the injury report. Very, very smartly adding the bye weeks there. Everybody pay attention to your lineups. Bye weeks do start this week. Pay attention to your lineups. If you're one of those fantasy league managers that just watches our show, listens to what we say, and puts those people in the lineup, and you don't look at anything else, make sure to pay attention to those bye weeks that Trav just mentioned. Moving along to what most people click this video for, waiver wire acquisitions. I want to hear something from each one of us on who we think that guy is going to be to make your team from 0-4 in fantasy to excuse me, to getting your first win. I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but
I missed that one. Jesus Christ!
I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but if I had to throw somebody, no, never mind. But nobody's gonna be under the. Sorry, what? I clicked the wrong button. I clicked the wrong button. Sorry. You know what? Go ahead, Trav. Who's your waiver wire acquisition for a week?
Nobody under the bus. Nobody's 0-4 in one of their leagues. Don't throw that person under the bus. That's messed up of you. Yeah. No, so I mean, we just spoke about him. It's kind of the easy way out because he was fresh on my mind. But my boy Michael Wilson, there's a clear role for him in Arizona right now. He's playing 70% of the snaps as of week 4 against San Fran. Had a damn good game against a very good defense. We know who San Francisco is. We know what they're capable of doing to opposing offenses. But it didn't bother Josh Dobbs and it didn't bother Michael Wilson. 26.60 fantasy points, like we said. 7 catches on 7 targets for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a rookie. I think that he's going to continue, not elite level like 26.60 for fantasy production, but I think he's going to be a serviceable flex moving forward. It may not happen again in week 5 or week 6, but down the line, especially when Kyler comes back, because he'll be Kyler's first ever receiver over 6 feet, not named DeAndre Hopkins. Jesus Christ. They're all short over there. But I think we could look at a guy like Rondale Moore and drop him and pick up Michael Wilson if you had somebody in that Arizona wide receiver room, because Michael Wilson, 1, is the better talent, and 2, is a big target for his quarterbacks. I like the matchup against Cincinnati. I think he can have another good game in week 5, but this is a name that should be on your radar at this point because he feels undeniable. He's certainly on a lot of people's dynasty radars, but I think that there is short-term 2023 value to be had in Michael Wilson.
That's an excellent pickup there. And I know we spoke about him already, so I'm not going to go too much on him, but that's an excellent pickup there. But since I'm going to go ahead next, because you gave me a good segue into that Cincinnati game. There's other players that are more viable, and we'll talk about them before we get off this waiver wire things. But I want to speak about a player that maybe a lot of people are not thinking about waiver wire wise because of the poor performance by the quarterback and Joe Burrow. But T. Higgins dealing with a rib fracture. Look at Tyler Boyd, owned in about 37% of leagues. He's a good pickup. Jamar Chase is there, I understand, but this is going to be the next guy up. Tyler Boyd ain't no chump. So I believe this is a very good pickup. Once again, only 37% owned in most leagues. My only concern here is Burrow, right? The only concern is Burrow. But listen, I have Burrow in all my leagues, and I started him every week. Very sadly, very poor decisions. But since I'm going to sit him, the way that fantasy works in my favor, he's probably going to ball out on my bench. So pick up Tyler Boyd, 37% owned in leagues, Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to be your receiver 2 there, and I believe it'll be a good pickup at the least to stash him on your bench. Bruce, who's on your waiver wire acquisition?
I got a bunch. No, I know I have a bunch.
Takes out a scroll.
Yeah.
I had a long time to think about it. No, but one that I'm looking at that I think people should be looking at. Unlike others, I had 2 tight ends take a fall this week, so I was actually looking at tight end and some tight ends that are out there and available. Zach Ertz is one.
Okay.
Higbee is another. I hate to say it, but Conklin could possibly be viable. We
got a Denver game coming up. Everybody,
there you go. We got a Denver game,
and then you got Logan Thomas that I was looking at. But for sure, I'm kind of looking at those guys right now. I'm trying to get Higbee right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm just looking for. I'm trying to look for a short offense. And the Rams will get it together. They have shaky games, but they'll get it together.
I agree. Definitely on Higbee. I like Higbee a lot. I actually drafted him very late in a lot of my leagues. Cooper Kupp coming back over there, either if not this week, possibly next week. So we'll see how that value and the target share changes over there because Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. Most people drafted him in the as long as you didn't know that he was going to be on IR, you drafted him in the first round of your leagues. Honorable mentions before we go off of waiver wires. Some names that you're probably going to hear on every podcast, but we want to dig a little deeper. Some names you're going to hear on every podcast. CJ Stroud, 47% rostered. Sam Howell, 18% rostered. Jaleel McLaughlin, 4% rostered. These are names that they're going to be at the top when you look at your waiver wire list on options. Those names are going to be at the top. If you don't have one of your top waiver wire picks, listen to us. We've been pretty on point this year. Up to this year, 4 games in, a lot of our picks have either snapped or been very close to doing it. So listen to us on those deeper waiver wire picks that you can only get here on the RDL podcast. But hey, do you have a name that we didn't mention and not those very common names? Comment down below. Let us know who's your waiver wire pickup, who's going to change your fantasy team and take you to a fantasy championship. Moving right along. Go ahead.
One that I wanted to mention real quick is that I think it's not a waiver thing, but it might be just something to look at for this week.
Okay.
I know that you guys probably talk about it just in case I'm not here. Jacoby Myers should have Garoppolo back. So he should get his upside.
Okay. That's a very good. That's
Josh Jacobs balled out this week, but
finally did.
We know that Jimmy G is going to pass the ball. I like O'Connell, but Jimmy G comes back hopefully, and Jacoby should get his love back. Also Jameson on Detroit.
Yeah, Jameson Williams.
I drafted him, and I'm looking to start him most likely.
Yeah. I will say one thing about Josh Jacobs. He was my buy candidate on last week's show. He might be back.
Trav.
He might be back. But this is what we saw happening. We knew Josh Jacobs was going to come back to form at some point. We were just waiting on it. Hopefully, it's finally here and he can continue it. So you might have missed your window if you didn't buy low on him last week. Now you got to pay the price. What's that saying? Yesterday's price? Not today's price on Josh Jacobs.
And then my last one, and then we can move. But Breda is probably the only offense the Giants got on that team. So if you don't have a running back and you want to take a gamble,
back, get out of here. Bring me Saquon back already.
That's the thing. Are they gonna bring him back? that's the thing that he might be out another week. And Matt
Daniel
Breida was
Jones
probably
is
the
going to
only thing
Daniel
going.
Jones, so I feel that.
Man.
We're gonna close out this. We're gonna close out this
Daniel
episode
Jones.
talking about Thursday night football. We have the Chicago 0-4 Bears playing the Commanders, sitting at 2-2. Gentlemen, where is our fantasy value in this game?
Brian Robinson, 2 touchdowns.
Everywhere.
Brian Robinson, 2 touchdowns.
I'll stamp that one.
I think last time these two played each other, it was a low scoring game though. I think it was like the score was like 18 to something or 12 to something. Seriously, I think it was like 12-8, a low scoring game. I just don't remember where I put it up at, but yeah, last time they played each other, low scoring game. I'm hoping that's not the case. Washington put up 31 points against the Eagles. Yeah. So I would definitely be looking at some offense in this game. Like Travis said, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, Dotson might be viable. Your boy like Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
You got Komet on the other side. DJ Moore.
There's interesting names all around. I want to make a little crazy statement here, and I want to say Sam Howell outscores Justin Fields this week.
Hey now.
Ooh.
It's just a feeling I have. Sam Howell, I mean, he could slice and dice with the best of them. Sam Howell's got an arm on him. If Justin Fields doesn't start using them legs, exactly, then that's the counterpoint for Justin Fields. Washington's defense is pretty damn good, even though they give up 34 to Philly. It's Philly. Justin Fields isn't hurt. Chicago isn't Philly. So that'll be my quote-unquote bold take. Yeah, exactly. Tush push. Brotherly shove.
Brotherly shove.
Brotherly shove. I like that. Yeah, man. It's a little bit of a trap game for me because of the performance fantasy-wise Chicago gave you. I don't think we see the same thing this week. I don't think DJ Moore pops off again this week. I believe the value on Chicago side is going to be with Fields. He's going to and Fields and Herbert. It's going to be those two guys that's going to get your fantasy value. I don't see Komet snapping again. I don't see DJ Moore snapping again. On the other side, I agree with all your takes. Robinson, I see him going ham. Sam Howell, I'm a fan of his. I see him going ham. And Logan Thomas, I mean, I'm not a big tight end lover. But, but listen, the stats talk.
It's Thursday night, bro. Thursday nights are so unpredictable. I think this year they're actually decent. This year, the games have been kind of decent.
Yeah, but, I mean, listen, when an 0-4 team is going against a 2-2 team, I don't think there's going to be a lot of viewage on this game, but it's Thursday night. It's the only football on, so I'll be watching. Looking for those standout players. I'll be there giving you all the info I can give you fantasy-wise. Gentlemen, good episode. We got a lot of those waiver wires acquisitions out. Some good names there. We went over last week's games, talking about our top players. Once again, QB of the week, Josh Allen, running back, Christian McCaffrey, receiver, AJ Brown, tight end, Cole Kmet. Next episode, we are bringing in another league manager from the RDL League, Mike Wish. Mike Wish will be joining us, giving us his actors and factors, giving us his buys and sells, and giving us his intake on this year's fantasy, because it's been a weird one, gentlemen. It's been weird. A lot of injuries. There's a lot of luck this year, unless you took your Christian McCaffreys earlier. It's been a lot of luck. But we got another guest host on here. He's going to give his intake. Gentlemen, anything you want to speak about before we head out for tonight?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to know what fantasy football was like before the shot clock.
Before the shot clock.
Since you're gonna have him on the show, ask him what was it like playing on a 10-man league.
Talk to us about those rings from I don't know.
Yeah, he's gonna get a proper introduction for his episode. I'm not gonna talk too much about him now. Let's save all the fun,
all the friendly banter.
Nah, he's a good fantasy manager though, for sure.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
Mike Wish will be hitting you up with all the details. Glad to see you. Gonna be seeing you next episode.
Yep.
See you later.
And I just buzz balls.
If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. If you looking for the truth, then I'm the real deal. Shout out to the crew and they get real. Find me with the crew, nigga, real. hunting boots go at your chest. I just told Pete to let it go, but he ain't got a